Mr. Brad Mills, thank you so much today for joining me. Being a playable character, I always joke with everybody, the show is playable characters, but being a playable character is someone who can think in a sea of non-playable characters. So thank you, Brad, for joining me and giving us some time here today.
You're welcome.
We were just joking off stage a little bit about this very thing, and it's something that I struggle with a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of Bitcoiners that do. But again, this idealism versus pragmatism you talked about a lot over the years, which is you whether it's being the Robin Hood of crypto or Robin Hood of Bitcoin. You've had the profile pictures kind of, with the Ross Ulbricht, the play on that and just the Robin Hood aspect. But it's a very real conversation, and it gets lost, I think, a lot in the ecosystem and the Twitter sphere. And you do a pretty good job of riding the line. Obviously, you tweak people on both sides, which is good. We got to break our echo chambers. And I think that's a really big problem in today's society in all aspects of life. So I would love for you to kind of, again, we'll get to your story here in a little bit, maybe later, but just some of the idealism versus pragmatism and really like your 30,000 foot view. I mean, again, there's not many people out there that I talked to, Adam O'Brien a month or two ago. He's been in the space nearly as long as you, or about as long as you. There's not many people that have built businesses or invested in businesses or been in Bitcoin as long as you guys have, and seeing things. You have to laugh at some of the things that are going on, honestly, like when you see things and people fighting about stuff. But I would love for you to start kind of going down the road of this, riding the line of idealism versus pragmatism, and kind of how you see the state of things from your 30,000 foot view.
Well, I'm still learning. I mean, the whole reason why I'm still active in Bitcoin is because I haven't figured it all out, and I'm still trying to figure it out, right? Like, my whole goal here is to protect myself and to have the most impact on my family, but the people I influence and like helping them protect their purchasing power, grow their wealth, whatever you want to say. And it's been a long journey for me to go from somebody who didn't understand money really at all to just having like an entrepreneurial mindset to be like, actually, I got into Bitcoin because I wanted to make a movie. And I decided to Google how to make money online so I could raise money to make a movie. And then in that process of discovering how to make money on the internet, I started a game company when Facebook opened up their API, and became an entrepreneur with the goal of raising some money to make a movie, and I made a whole bunch of money. And then I was like, what do I do with this money? Like, this is crazy. I've never had money before. And I started figuring out, like, what do I put my money? And then I started learning about taxes, the history of money, gold as a store of value, unit of account versus store of value, inflation, all these things that I just didn't know about money because I had some. And I was like, I got to protect this now. This is great. I can make my movie, but now I got this business. And then I kind of learned about Austrian economics and libertarianism and all those things. And it was like the first time that I got a philosophy that really spoke to me, because I grew up Mormon and I thought like drinking coffee was evil for a lot of my life. So, I mean, I've been on a lifelong journey of trying to figure out things, right? So I don't have all the answers. I'm just saying that I've definitely gone from somebody who was almost like propagandized towards libertarianism and Austrian economics to like radicalized almost, that like to the idea of hyper Bitcoinization and things like that. And like, I will never touch fiat again, like that sort of mentality that I totally relate with a lot of people that are kind of newer saying those things, and just struggling personally with how do you square that with my personal experience of coming from the eastern part of Canada, which was like high unemployment, really poverty ridden. Even though it was kind of shitty, we had the social safety net there. We had emergency health care, and we had welfare, and we had subsidized housing. So my family wasn't homeless, like we lived in government housing for a while. And it was like I had kind of thrown that away when I learned about libertarianism. And that was the one thing that always kind of stuck with me. It's like, how does that work? Like, how could I know Ron Paul and the libertarians will say, well, it goes back to the community, and then it's based off your family and the community. You have to take care of people. But I don't even have the answers to that yet. still on the journey. So I've kind of like gone from not really thinking about politics and money to thinking a lot about politics and money towards the libertarian, Austrian economics, that side of the spectrum, to then coming back towards like when we went through the crypto bubble, I realized like, wow, this is actually like a libertarian free market dream. All this scamming and fraud and all this yield Ponzi schemes and all
Mm-hmm.
this, are we really actually libertarian free market maximalists if we're trying to get the government to come and regulate these markets to protect people from their stupid decisions? And it threw me for a loop a couple of years ago when I was like really challenged by that idea. I mean, that was the true free market. Like that's what a free market is, right? Shitcoin scams left and right, that's a free market. So, obviously I came onto the side of like, you can be for free markets and still have free speech and educate and advocate for like everything that's not Bitcoin is likely a bad investment, probably a scam, whatever. That's part of a free market too. You can definitely lobby and educate and hold your opinions strongly. But yeah, I mean, I've gone all over the spectrum and I'm still, in the end, I come to like, I'm a value maximalist, and Bitcoin, I think, is the best thing in the world that can store your value. And I don't, I don't think that it makes sense to expect that everybody else in the world is going to come to that conclusion ever. And so the idea of hyper Bitcoinization, I think, was just partially like a meme that grew legs. And, some people really believe that like hyper Bitcoinization might happen and that there will be no other money in the world. And it will like Bitcoin will take away the power for governments to borrow and print money and, and wage wars and stuff. Like there's a super nuanced understanding of like the idea of hyper Bitcoinization and what Bitcoin can do as a lever to help make politicians more responsible and reduce their ability to inflate the money supply and wage war, things like that. But like, there's a super idealistic, naive view out there that a lot of like newer class Bitcoiners kind of have this idea that Bitcoin is just going to totally destroy fiat money and bonds and everything. And like, maybe it just takes a cycle or two for you to kind of mature in your understanding of money in the world. And, thousands of years of history like tell us that politicians are going to grab power and then print money. So it's not that Bitcoin will eliminate all that stuff. It's just, it's a new factor in the equation that will help you think better about money if you really understand it. So I like to think about it that in the way that I'm on this journey too, but like the printing press taught people how to read, the internet taught people how to write, and Bitcoin will teach people how to think. And I'm still learning how to think.
Yeah. Well, I love that you say that because it's something that strikes a chord with me. I've been thinking about this for, I don't know, a few years now, really like, I don't know, meditating on it, I guess, but it's the increasing humility and decreasing ego. Excuse me. Especially for men, obviously that's, the ego, it's a hard thing at times to put aside. Right. And it's something that you this is what you're touching on, right? Like you're always learning. And I think that that's where like the formalized schooling, the compulsory schooling that a lot of us go through, it's like, well, I'm done with school, oh, great. Like don't have to learn anymore. Don't have to think. And people just like shut off their brains. And Bitcoin, again, you said this over time, over the last decade, again, it's just learning process. And you're constantly humbling or being humbled. You're trying to humble yourself and then you're still getting humbled on top of that. And it really is like that ultimate test. Do you think in saying, all of that and what you just kind of said, do you think that I feel like some of the Bitcoin maximalist. And again, like I put myself in that camp where I can be too idealistic and like, guys, this is money's a decision. Like if you educate enough people, or if enough people get hurt, all of a sudden overnight, you can decide, people can decide 3%, 5%, 10% can say, we're not using the dollar anymore. It's gone, done. And we're using Bitcoin. We're using something else, right? It could be anything, but it's money is psychology. It's just a decision that, we could trade barrels of oil, right? So do you think that, or when, I guess, do you see a place in the future that, bonds have been wiped out by Bitcoin? Is that 4, 10 years from now, 15, is it 100 years from now? When you kind of look at things going on into the future, what do you kind of see? Because you're right, politicians are always grabbing that power and they're going to do everything they can to keep grabbing that, as we see now, the state-sponsored attacks. What do you see when you kind of look out into the horizon?
We want to thank our sponsor. This show is presented by Bitcoin Trading Cards, an orange pill in a pack, making talking about things that normally make you want to cry fun and easy. The scarcest and most educational cards to ever exist. Available now.
I don't actually think that will happen. I think that Bitcoin can have its place alongside bonds, gold, real estate, and fiat currencies as a global reserve asset, and have maybe 5% of the world's wealth stored in it, and still be a $20 trillion asset, considered extremely successful by all of our current measures, $1 million a coin, right, without it ever challenging bonds and dollars or fiat currencies. And in that way, I kind of come to the same understanding of Bitcoin, I guess, as Michael Saylor has been talking about lately, where, he sort of advocates, don't compare Bitcoin to like competing with dollars. It's a property. It's a competing with the excess store of value premium that's in the stock market and the gold and real estate and things like that. So in a way, like, yeah, I don't see Bitcoin contributing greatly to like the collapse of the bond market or the doing away of bonds. I don't think that will ever happen, unless we get some kind of like super AGI sentient machine that comes in and decides Bitcoin's the best money and turns us all off, turns off the internet and hacks all the databases and Fedwire and stuff and just says, no, you can't use bonds anymore. This is a mess. But yeah, no, I mean, anything's possible, but I just don't think it's like plausible. It's conceivable, but not the likely scenario that the bond market will go away. I mean, like Bitcoin Tina actually, for many people may not know him. He's kind of fallen out of favor with his kind of fumbling of the narrative that he actually was really good at carrying during the bear market, and then last cycle. But he used to talk a lot about Bitcoin's place in the world as a asset, as an asset. And but he kind of went a little bit hyperbolic with it. He started advocating for that thing that people talk about, where Bitcoin's just going to do away credit. And he went so far as to say that, like, unless Bitcoin does away with credit, then it will fail, because you need credit in a fiat system. And if Bitcoin is going to be the world's money that will continually accrue in value in purchasing power terms, you can't lend in it, because no one will ever be able to pay back their debts. If you lend Bitcoin and it continues to grow in value, you'll never be able to pay your debts back. So it will kind of do away with credit if we're on a hyper Bitcoinized world. And I mean, this is kind of an advanced concept, I think, for some people to understand, but like, I just don't think that's realistic. I don't think Bitcoin has to do away with credit in order for it to succeed. I think Bitcoin can succeed as a global reserve asset, not the global reserve currency or the global reserve asset, but just up there with everything else that's like a tier one, HQLA thing that banks and sovereign wealth funds and all these large institutions and governments use as collateral and store in their treasuries. And I think in terms of your question, like when will that happen? Probably 20 years, 20 years or so. I mean, so it's going to be a while. By that time, Bitcoin is probably $1 million at least. And maybe after that, who knows? I mean, maybe we could get into the territory where people start to, like the bond market has fallen apart based on its own problems, nothing to do with Bitcoin, but just kind of imploded on itself. And there's a debt jubilee and a default on the debt and a transfer of wealth and all these things that have happened historically in the past happen again. And then people kind of go back to like a commodity standard or a Bitcoin standard in some places. And Bitcoin may then kind of appear as like, oh, the new gold standard because it's electronic and digital property and native to the internet. And yeah. So maybe.
No,
it's possible.
Excuse me. It's interesting. I mean, again, like I had Samson on like a month ago or something like that, and he was, he takes umbrage with the Saylor comments, which, Saylor again runs, has $1 billion whatever organization, right? So it's like he's got to say certain things too, right? And it's you were in the nuance of it, and he's like, well, it's a money, Samson's like, it's a money, it's a currency, I don't agree with that. He says it's a property, and then you have people like George Gammon who are saying, hey, I don't believe that people are going to learn. There's the one faction, right, of Bitcoiners that say, well, Bitcoin changes you, which it does. It definitely has changed a lot of us who have put our life and time and energy into it. At the same time, what happens, to your point, like what happens generations from now when people just grow up? I don't know if entitled is the right word, but they just grew up and they know nothing but Bitcoin being around. They didn't see the fight. Do people care about it? And Saylor himself has even said, the biggest threat to Bitcoin in a way is just the sentiment, right? Do people care about hard money? Do people, like you said, if it's just one of the other assets out there and people are like, it gets good. It's a good store of value. It is what it is. What is Bitcoin's effect? I guess my question to you is, what is Bitcoin's effect if it's, and I guess maybe it's Bitcoin is the benefactor to what you're just saying. Bitcoin's a benefactor because it's the only one standing, because the fiat system has just eroded itself and kind of just starts dissipating over the next couple of decades. But what is Bitcoin's effect, I guess, in the coming decades, if it's just one of the other assets, like if it's 20 trillion or whatever it might be, where it's just a 5% or 10% of the global, asset base. What do you think the effect is? Is it what Bitcoiners, a lot of them think it's going to be, the hardcore Bitcoiners? Is it where, it's this great world where reprices everything and does that? What do you see there?
I see it as a tool that will help as many people as are interested in protecting themselves from the debasement of their savings. Or, I was thinking about this a couple of weeks ago. What if Bitcoin is inevitable and the short-term gyrations and the fluctuations in price and the FUD cycles and the attacks that come inevitably from governments and regulators? Like, what if all of that stuff is just noise and Bitcoin is inevitable? Mm-hmm. And all you have to do is just hold your Bitcoin, buy more Bitcoin if you want, but just harness Bitcoin's inevitability. And I kind of got this like wave of gratitude and happiness when I thought about that, because I was like meditating on it and I was like, holy shit, like what if I could harness Bitcoin's inevitability myself? And I just had to get rid of all these emotional, negative, short-term thinking things about, what's the Fed going to say? What is the interest rate going to be next year? Which banks are going to fail? All this macro bullshit. Like, if Bitcoin is inevitable, all I have to do is just grow with Bitcoin. So then I started to think, like, that's the real benefit. If you can disconnect yourself from the negative short-term stuff about the price and everything, if you can just harness to the inevitability of Bitcoin and improve yourself and teach as many people as you want that are willing to learn about the benefits of Bitcoin, then that's Bitcoin's effect. It's businesses and countries and individuals, and especially the poorest of the world, who can pull themselves up from that scarcity mindset of don't think about being rich, or like I can't even think about saving because I'm so poor, to even though it's cliche and cringy some people, to like, think and grow rich. The timeless classical mindset stuff about positive thinking, intentional thinking, setting goals, opening your awareness and ideas, considering the idea that you could be rich. And like that's just timeless classical 101 stuff that a lot of the poorest in the world just don't even think they can be rich. But like Bitcoin gives us all that opportunity that we can harness Bitcoin's inevitability and just save in a better money and forget all the noise and all the other stuff. Just continue to study Bitcoin. So I think like in that way, it's going to have the most impact possible to the most amount of people, unless, and the reason why I say that is because the bigger impact that you can have is to be an entrepreneur and to start a business and to make your own way, right?
Yep.
But 90% or something like that of people in the world are not entrepreneurial, and they just want to work and live in a house and have their hobbies and enjoy their family, and kind of that's their contribution and that's their life, and that's okay. And they don't want to be professional money managers reading about the markets and trying to beat inflation. They think that it's kind of like their short end of the straw that can't do anything about it. So Bitcoin has the opportunity, if it's even just gets to the point where it's a global reserve asset, it's likely going to increase in value extremely, enough, more than enough, that like 20x or something like that, more than enough for most people to get an outsized kind of life-changing return if they start saving in Bitcoin and hook onto Bitcoin's inevitability right now or over the next decade. Maybe it might be muted to 5x or something like that. But then at some point, Bitcoin will then be just a way to preserve your purchasing power like gold, preserve and slowly grow your purchasing power like gold, which for a lot of the world right now, they need that. Like a lot of middle class and wealthy people need that. So right now, Bitcoin's biggest impact will be in poor people grabbing a hold of it, and then like opportunistic early adopters like Michael Saylor and wealthy individuals and countries and stuff that are grabbing onto Bitcoin's freight train right now. But at some point, Bitcoin is going to be so valuable that it'll just more so be the value proposition will be you're not going to lose your purchasing power. You're just gonna hold purchasing power with this thing.
Yeah. Speaking of inevitability, or Bitcoin being inevitable, and just kind of minding your business, but also taking care of yourself and becoming the better version of yourself, talking to people who have ears to hear or eyes to see, helping those who want to learn. Does anything worry you in the Bitcoin space? I mentioned Saylor saying, again, people just the sentiment of people, or George Gammon, again, that's his thing. Well, like, I don't believe that it's going to change people enough. Like Jeff Booth believes it's going to change people enough to where they're going to want to and need Bitcoin. George Gammon doesn't believe that. Michael Saylor, again, his thing is, hey, the only real thing I see is not technical. It's just humans. Will they adopt it? Will they see a benefit to it? In your eyes, what do you think is there any, thing that kind of keeps you up at night thinking about Bitcoin or the ecosystem?
Not lately. There used to be many things. Lately, like I said, I've come to this kind of understanding of Bitcoin is just inevitable now.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know what that caused me to get there after 13 years, because I was worried like crazy like 2 years ago about DeFi and the collapse of Luna and Celsius and all this and FTX. I was like, this is going to blow up, and then all these Ponzi schemes are going to take Bitcoin down. The regulators are going to come after Bitcoin because they don't understand the difference between Bitcoin and crypto. So I mean, and then before that, I was worried about Ethereum And before that, I was worried about Bitcoin Cash because Roger had Bitcoin.com and, you know, the fork. And before that, I was worried about the government shutting it down because of Silk Road and Charlie Shrem and all the stuff that was going on. So, I mean, I was always worried, like, at different points in Bitcoin about, like, existential stuff. But now, like, I don't worry about ordinals. I don't think that spam is... I mean, I'm an investor in ocean mining, so I'm super supportive of what the mission is there to decentralize mining and for people to opt into filtering spam if that's what they believe ordinals are. I'm super supportive of that. I prefer that Bitcoin be used as a money for people that need it. So I'm not super keen on like supporting the mission of using Bitcoin as a world's hard drive. I think that's kind of dumb. But I'm not worried about ordinals. Actually, I kind of realized that this is super controversial for a lot of Bitcoiners that haven't thought about it as long as I have. I think that ordinals actually is a positive incentive to keep Bitcoin decentralized. And that doesn't mean I'm going to get involved in ordinals. It's just part of Bitcoin's story now. And there's a fork of the Bitcoin universe, right, where Wall Street captures Bitcoin and influences Bitcoin towards censoring OFAC, you know, compliant transactions, forcing all the miners to implement an OFAC censor list and all this stuff. And that's actually more concerning than spamming Bitcoin in Bitcoin's existential world, because Bitcoin can scale in layers with Chaumian and eCash systems and Lightning and other implementations, side chains like Liquid and Fedimints and all this stuff. So Bitcoin can definitely handle the global demand for payments and store of value through layered scaling. It might take longer than we'd hoped, but it's going to happen. It's I don't have any doubts we can scale. But if Bitcoin mining gets captured by like US or Western miners that are just have to be compliant with censorship regulations, that's a little bit more concerning to me, because yes, you can hope that altruistic miners will come in, but what's actually interesting, which is happening in the free market of Bitcoin mining, is that the ordinals transactions, the spam transactions, have created a huge incentive for people overseas to start mining Bitcoin, where they may have not mined Bitcoin before because they weren't making enough. And if there's this massive incentive now, like even more so, to go mine Bitcoin outside of the US, then you retain Bitcoin's decentralization, because it decentralizes the Bitcoin mining. It provides governments that are adversarial towards the OFAC list, say, or Western sanctions, to start mining Bitcoin and mine their own transactions. And they're not going to give a shit if they mine OFAC transactions, if like Russia starts mining Bitcoin or whatever. So like all these, like half the world's countries that are not obeying OFAC and US regulations and the SWIFT bans and all this stuff, they're now, like, via the free market incentive of Bitcoin mining and transaction fees, are interested in mining Bitcoin more. So I think that it's actually positive, and it's actually, we're getting the best of both worlds because of the Wall Street adoption of Bitcoin. They're going to adopt Bitcoin. They have adopted Bitcoin. They're going to continue to, but yet they won't have the negative impact of censoring the ability for you to transact on Bitcoin. Maybe there will be OFAC lists, like, you know, U.S. miners will have to, but if they're only 30% of the Bitcoin hash power, then who cares? You get your transaction privately through a different miner. So it's actually positive. Like, as kind of dumb as it sounds, like spam on Bitcoin being positive for Bitcoin, when you think about it in a positive light, it's actually kind of impressive that this is incentivizing more Bitcoin mining. So idealistically, I mean, I obviously would prefer that it's real Bitcoin transactions of monetary value instead of JSON data. like random gambling, speculative nonsense. But the free market is the free market, and that's what's people are choosing to use Bitcoin for at this weird blurb in history.
Yeah, and it makes me think too of, again, like when crisis hits, again, call it a crisis or not, but things that are unexpected, maybe that's a better way to say it. It creates opportunity, and like in the end, you laid that out very well. And it's like anything, like the Canadian trucker convoy, or the block size wars, like all these different things that have happened throughout time that have been either directly related to Bitcoin or maybe indirectly. It creates new use cases where people go to work to solve the problem. And a lot of times that's how humans work. We're not solving problems really that don't exist, or like, we're not generally doing it for like future things. We're like, hey, I think it's going to happen in 100 years, so I'm going to solve it now. So these things have to happen in a way, and they're speed bumps or hurdles I think we have to get through. But you touched on a few things that I want to hit, but even like the Luna stuff, some of the fears you had. I mean, first, like you have this great video from, what is it, 2011, and you're setting up the mining rigs and doing that. Like everyone's got to go to, I think it's on your YouTube. You got to go to watch Brad's video of him setting up the rigs. I mean, there's not a ton of videos out there necessarily from that long ago, setting up rigs and kind of going through that stuff. It's very cool, number one, to see, and just historically to see that. And you touched on some of these fears throughout time. And people are scared about, again, state-sponsored attacks and people this and that coming now. I mean, what was that like? How did you not get bucked off the horse after, like, and then you even said, like, I've lost Bitcoin here, I lost Bitcoin there. I was trading, I'm degenning, I'm doing this. Like, you're doing all kinds of these things, making the mistakes, doing all the things that most of us have done and had to learn, go through the gauntlet to learn. But how did you not get bucked off the horse? Because again, a lot of people have. So what kind of set you apart that you always had this like true North Star, this foundation where you just never fully left, like a Roger Ver, I guess, or something like that, where you never fell away from the space completely?
I think it was because of my reason for getting into Bitcoin initially was that I just felt, when I started learning about the fiat system and how the plumbing works, and the history of taxation and the history of the creation of the dollar and the Federal Reserve complexities, I just got really pissed off, and I was like, this is a big scam. Like, the entire financial system is a Ponzi scheme, and money itself is the biggest scam in the world. And the money is not money, it's just debt. It's just digits, So like that really became a radicalizing sort of realization for me, that like I need to tell everybody, what do you think money is? Let's talk about the money. I mean, forget about whatever issue du jour. Money touches us all. So I'm still like that. I'm still like trying to learn about the money and educate people about the real problems that fiat money causes. I think that being a financial activist is like a life mission. And it's not something that, if you're like an environmentalist, you can't just like give it up. I don't think. I think if you're that like in your soul passionate about an issue, it doesn't matter if you screwed up or whatever. It's like you're going to think about it and you're going to want to come back to it. So it's because, and this is why I've thought about this a lot too, because I have a lot of friends that did fall off the horse, that like got bucked off the horse and then just never came back.
Yeah.
And then I have a lot of friends that became crypto people. They started launching their own coins and all this stuff. Or they're just crypto traders. They're not like, they were Bitcoiners and they were kind of in it for the tech or whatever. But then that was like, really, they're just traders. They're just crypto traders or whatever. So I've had a lot of friends go along the years, and I've seen a lot of new people come, and every mass adoption cycle I get more excited because we get another like huge network effect amplifier in this new person that comes, or these new cohort of A star players that come to Bitcoin and like become huge network effects for Bitcoin. So like we get an upgrade every cycle. So every time it's like the 4-year cycle happens, a bunch of new people start to consider Bitcoin and crypto or blockchain technology or whatever. and then they come in, they're entrepreneurs, so they'll make something, they'll build something, and they'll raise money maybe, and then maybe 5% of them will become a Bitcoiner, and the rest of them will just kind of either fail miserably at their crypto project and then go back to whatever they were doing, and then be soured on Bitcoin and crypto, and it's like, oh, that's just a money making, scams or whatever. But you get like a Michael Saylor, Corey Clipston, Jack Dorsey, all of these people that even say like Nicholas Bertie from Galloy, David Bailey, like all these people were into crypto or didn't like Bitcoin. So they all like every cycle we get a new lead, like general or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
So this isn't in previous cycles. I'd be like, oh my God, looking at all the funding that Andreessen Horowitz and all these VC, like Silicon Valley VC firms are giving billions of dollars to build scams and Ponzi schemes. And it would make me nervous. And then all of a sudden, Jack Dorsey, bam, here's $20 million for supporting open source development, and $8 million for Africa development of the Bitcoin developers, and 10 million for the Bitcoin Legal Defense Fund, and like, oh damn. And then Michael Saylor comes out like changing FASB rules and doing huge fundraising and like speaking at the Atlas dinner, and like all these super influential people come, and it's just like that made me realize that like I didn't have to stress so much about like trying to educate and trying to do anything anymore. Like really, it's just like, no, I don't have to do anything really. I mean, like the network is growing, and I just have to harness Bitcoin's inevitability. But I am a financial activist, so I'm going to continue to invest in companies and entrepreneurs and educational projects and artists and cool projects like Bitcoin trading cards and rap albums and films, and like just because I'm so passionate about Bitcoin and educating people and improving financial literacy for people, that I will never stop, even though now I feel a lot less pressure. Before it was kind of like I have to like go out and educate, and I have to go and engage with these people on LinkedIn because they don't know what they're saying, or like I have to engage with my Facebook friend because he says Bitcoin's a scam and I need to educate his followers. Now I'm just like, I don't need to do any of that really. Like none of us really do, but like those of us that are passionate because we're financial activists will do it. So that's why you don't have to do anything, because Bitcoin, I say like Bitcoin is like the productive protest. Every other protest or every other cause that I've ever gotten involved with in the past, it's always been unproductive, because really there's not much I can do to change the outcome, whether it's global warming or taxes or even the dollar scam or the wars or whatever the thing is, like a politician's campaign, whatever it is, the thing that like you feel like protesting or you feel like getting involved in being an activist, usually it ends in negative feelings of frustration and angst and why don't people listen to me? Like, why don't people care? But with Bitcoin, you can put your monetary energy into this protest and then get back 10x amplitude of your energy that you put in. So it's like the most productive protest in the planet. And that's why it attracts a lot of people that don't fall off the horse, because like, staying on the horse, even if you're not successful at influencing anybody, you're productively doing something for yourself just by being involved in Bitcoin.
Yeah. And sucking life force from the fiat system, which is amazing.
Yeah.
What you mentioned again, like some of your friends, we talked about this a little bit, but they had, and I think you said some other interviews or even spaces, they either resent Bitcoin or resented it or still do, or they have Bitcoin derangement syndrome because they got bucked off or they were trying to trade it or whatever ended up happening. And it's you've, again, we touch on the Robinhood of crypto thing as well, and people have come at you of like, well, from both sides, again, like, well, why are you investing in crypto companies? So I'd love for you to kind of touch on that and just give a quick explainer of this process of dabbling in projects or companies that are doing things and then redistributing those funds back to Bitcoin or open sats, Geyser, things of that nature, and really the importance of supporting, which again, those are projects that are really still fairly unknown, I feel like, in the space, and how important it is to really get those platforms out there so people know about them.
Yeah, well, I mean, this one is also kind of like a controversial take because I believe in like a scale of net negative, neutral, or positive in a lot of different areas. I think it's more like a spectrum of like positive to negative rather than like good or bad. And in my opinion, you can, if you're like that extremist about your views around Bitcoin, that everything other than Bitcoin is a scam, then really by working a job for fiat, you're a scammer.
Yeah.
So,
true.
I mean, if you want to get that extremist about it, really, like anything, if you're not 100% all in Bitcoin, then you're a scammer. So
Great point.
it's like that doesn't logically flow. So if it's not good or bad, there has to be a spectrum. Or you're just like, everybody's a scammer. I mean, there's very few people in the world that are 100% Bitcoin, and there's definitely people doing it, and that's incredible. And I think there'll be more and more and more over time, just like there'll be more Michael Saylors and Jack Dorseys and everything else. There's going to be more people just living 100% on a Bitcoin standard. So it's incredible. Like Jeff Booth decided to make the decision to like focus his influence on building Bitcoin instead of being in the fiat world. Like that's a spectrum I'm talking about. He realized he was like net neutral on the spectrum, and he wanted to be net positive on the spectrum. So he's making that his mission. So many people have different skills, whether you're a marketer, maybe you've just got a product mindset, maybe you're really good at organizing events or promoting or doing art or music or whatever. So there's a lot of support out there for Bitcoin development through OpenSats and Brink Bitcoin and the Square Crypto Spiral grants, all this stuff. There's a lot of great organizations, HRF, but there wasn't as much, I felt, support for educators, artists, and just generally people contributing to Bitcoin culture. And I think that people contributing to Bitcoin culture is just as important as the development of Bitcoin, because that's the word of mouth, bootstraps, guerrilla marketing is like people all over the world making Bitcoin art and music and film and games and stuff like that, and educating. So I really wanted to have a place in Bitcoin where we could have like a fundraising grants program for Bitcoin artists and people contributing to Bitcoin culture that typically we're not getting any funding from other organizations. So that's what Geyser Grants was. It was a kind of way to recognize, even if it's micro grants, people that are doing things all over the world that are contributing to Bitcoin culture. And for people who to do their own fundraising campaigns. We have Tallycoin. Tallycoin was great. But there was like social features that I wanted to see. So I invested in Geyser, and we kind of started the Geyser Grants together as a way to bootstrap this sort of ground up swelling. Hopefully it was going to be like a geyser, like the ground up bootstrapping of a system that people could use to go raise their own money. And it was super successful. The guys are crushing it. A bunch of campaigns have raised over a Bitcoin. Some of them multiple Bitcoins, and it's like very early in the company and in the platform. So I'm super pumped on and bullish on Geyser and the Geyser Grants program. It's continually growing. We're starting to get more support there from other Bitcoin companies that want to pay their Bitcoin tithing, because that was a big thing for me. So that's the Geyser thing. Now, on the other side of it, there's, what can you do for Bitcoin? Like I said, I feel like now at this point, like I don't really need to do anything for Bitcoin, although I'm still going to, because I'm a financial activist, and Bitcoin's the best productive protest for me to get involved with as a financial activist. So yeah, I mean, my skills are like, for some reason, I'm very good at like identifying, I'm seeing the future. I mean, that's one of my superpowers, is like seeing the future. I realized recently, and because I'm always early to things, I seem to have a good eye for like what's going to take off, what people like. I mean, what's going to be viral, like those sorts of things. And so sometimes I can identify when the crypto bubble is going to flare up. And then if I make some predictions or whatever, then I mean, I can either get like pissed off about it and just watch it happen, or I can influence people to, like, if you have the ability to be a trader, I think that people like Chris Dunn are really good to follow, because he's a Bitcoin maximalist. He's a trader. He's a professional trader. He's not serving up crypto Kool-Aid. He's not telling you about the tech and about the 100x if you hold the bag and all this shit. He's just like a traditional professional trader who uses stop losses, and he knows all the scams that the coin devs are going to pull. And so he doesn't like get people served up on Kool-Aid and gets them like holding bags to zero. So if somebody feels like they're good at doing that, I mean, I say do it. Like if you have the opportunity to go in, and it's a market that's already operating. It's not like you're starting the market. You're not providing liquidity to the market. You're just a neutral participant in an existing market. But if you have the ability to go in there, identify what you think is stupid people are going to put their money into, and pull that money out yourself, and then go give it to Bitcoin creators and Bitcoin developers, I think that's net positive. Now, some people argue that that's net neutral because you're hurting people because you're taking their money. But I'm like, hey, this is a neutral sort of like zero sum game or whatever. Like it's not like you're out there convincing people to go buy these coins. They're already convinced because they watch Mike Novogratz tattoo the shit on his arm, and he tells them at the on CNBC to go buy this bullshit, and Raoul Paul. So basically you're like, well, a bunch of dummies are going to go give me money. Like, should I take it or should I not? I mean, that's the opportunity, really. Should I take money from a bunch of dumb VCs and dumb crypto traders and give it to Bitcoin developers who are like altruistically out there, like hustling to make Bitcoin the best money in the world? Or should I just stand back and do nothing? And in the past, I've chosen to do the opposite, and I recommended, not publicly, but like privately, because I don't want like telling people what to do with their money. I don't like giving financial advice other than buy Bitcoin. So, but at this point though, like I feel like it's more important to focus on what makes me feel good and what I'm mission aligned to. And I realized that doing that sort of thing for me at this phase of my life is not healthy, because I hate doing it. I mean, I don't like learning about dog hair coin and like whatever bullshit. I don't like going and learning about all the people getting scammed by this, people influencing people, to go buy stupid coins. It's just like, it makes me feel gross.
Yeah.
So at this point, I've pretty much hands off the bubble that's happening right now, and I'm not paying attention to it at all. I'm focusing more on, like I said, harnessing Bitcoin's inevitability and helping, like spending my time to help Bitcoin founders and educate people about Bitcoin. I just feel like that's more mission aligned for me. So I've retired the Robin Hood avatar, and I don't think I'll bring him back. I think I'm done with that phase.
Wow. I know we have a few minutes left. I want to do a quick word association game presented by a new segment presented by Bitcoin Trading Cards, actually, which Brad bought the on Geyser, the Spear Satoshi. Actually, you bought the big Kahuna on that one, and
I did
a bunch of boxes. Yeah, so that was huge, and that sold out a little while ago. Actually, that whole project,
awesome,
or on Geyser at least. So very cool there. But first, before we do a quick lightning round to kind of wrap, are you number one? You got to tell me because again, hockey guy here, love the flow between the flow and the beards over the last decade or so. Love it. Love it. You got to tell me the inspiration behind that and why you're always changing it up. And then are you going to be, if people go to Montreal, will they see you there in a couple weeks?
Dude, I got to talk to a therapist about that one. I have no idea why I feel the need to continually change up my look. I've made a decision, I think my second cycle of Bitcoin, to stop shaving when we hit an all-time high and started to go down. So I was like, this is my bear market beard. It's like a playoff beard, right?
Playoff beard.
I'm going to grow the beard until we're out of the bear market and then shave it. And so I did that. This is my third bear market beard, and I've already cut like 3 or 4 inches off of it.
Wow.
I'm kind of doing I've kind of shaped it more, got my barber to shape it more like a little bit like a Guy Fawkes look at the moment, where it's kind of pointy, and I got the huge Guy Fawkes stash. But it's not a bear market anymore, so I was gonna shave it completely off, but all the dudes keep giving me compliments, telling me how sweet my beard is. So I just like all this attention from men, I guess. I got to talk to a therapist about it and figure out what's going on with why I can't shave the beard.
It's amazing. You're not prejudiced. What can you say? So don't discriminate. I love it.
But yes, I will be in Montreal.
Good. I'll see you there in a couple of weeks.
I don't know if I'm going to have the beard, though. I'm not sure if the beard's going to make it another week and a half. I keep feeling the urge to just get rid of the whole thing. Like it's
tough with summer too. Yeah, it's tough with like the warm weather coming up. That kills me. So I'm just like, I just can't. So that's why I generally just never can grow one, because I'm like, I can't keep it long enough. I had my hair down to like my back before when I was playing like 12 years ago, like middle of my back, because I had some long hair.
The hockey hair too, nice.
All right, before we wrap here, quick word association game to wrap up. I'm going to just fire, I got like a dozen words, and just hit me with the word that comes to your mind. It can be a word or two, a couple words, but we'll run through it quick, and usually get some laughs out of here. So first one, Satoshi Nakamoto.
Craig Wrong.
The Canadian trucker convoy.
Prophetic.
Altcoins.
Bitcoins.
Poutine.
Carbs.
Bitcoin mining.
Regret.
Everyone's got to go. Everyone has to go watch. I'll link it in here. Everyone has to go watch Brad's video of him mining from 2011. Politics.
Distraction.
Peter Schiff.
Yeah, I'm grateful. I'm grateful for Peter Schiff.
Oh man, I love that. Proof of work.
That one is just makes sense.
I love that. Vitalik Buterin. Oh yeah. Vitalik Buterin.
Flexible.
Communism.
Vitalik.
State-sponsored attacks.
Idiocracy.
Bitcoin trading cards.
Addictive.
Bitcoin art.
Patrons.
Spirit of Satoshi.
Halving.
And OpenSats and Geyser.
Bitcoin tithing.
Love that. Where can people find you, brother?
Well, I'm on Instagram a lot more actually these days. Wow. I'm not very active on Twitter or Nostr much. Although I do post. Brad Mills can pretty much everywhere, but yeah, I'm posting a lot on Instagram these days. I'm posting about my workout routine, my new mindset routines, things I'm listening to. I'm trying to focus a lot more on like building a citadel. You know, that's my new 2024 goal. I'm trying to get a team together, a tax team, and an administration team, to level up in all areas. And I'm getting like a fitness coach, and I'm working out 7 days a week, and I got like a chef cooking for all my meal prep, so my macros are good. And really, I'm just trying to get to the best. I'm trying to look. I want to look and feel like my Bitcoin wallet by the end of this year.
That's amazing. Well, hey, I appreciate the playoff beard, number one. I appreciate the personal development and leading the way and walking the talk. So I thank you for coming on, Brad, being a playable character, clearly, again, being the example for Bitcoiners and people trying to live a better life. So thank you for being a playable character and coming on here today.
I appreciate the kind words, man, and congrats with the show. And if you ever need anything, just let me know.
Thanks, Brad. Appreciate it, man. Thank you for checking out this episode of the Playable Characters Show, brought to you by Bitcoin Trading Cards. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss any of the future Bitcoin and financial experts we have on the show. Plus, we will be doing random big giveaways throughout different moments of shows of collectible cards, sats, merch, and more from guests, so you won't miss anything. This show does not constitute any investment advice, only freedom advice. Everything you see here is opinions from the host and the guests themselves, nothing further. Please don't trust, verify. For full transparency, I do lead marketing efforts at Bitcoin Trading Cards, where we are trying to spread freedom to all of humanity and orange pill the world, one collectible physical trading card at a time, by making things fun and easy to talk about that normally make you want to cry. You can reach me directly through my email, brandon@btc-cards.com, with any inquiries or playable character suggestions. See you on the next one.